The morning ferry pulls away from Prince Rupert's dock with a low, resonant horn that vibrates through the wooden pier and into your feet. You found a spot on the upper deck, despite the cool September air that carries the first hints of autumn, 48 degrees and dropping, because this particular crossing demands to be witnessed fully, not through salt-hazed windows but with all your senses open to what lies ahead. Behind you, the town begins its slow dissolution into mist. First, the individual buildings blur. Then the harbour itself becomes a watercolour suggestion of civilization. And finally, even the mountains that cradle the port fade into grey memory. Through the ferry's speakers, a voice alternates between English and Haida. We are now departing for Haida Gwaii, Tilgadad la Skada Agang, the ancient language rolling like waves over the modern announcement. Settling deeper into your deck chair, you feel the ferry's engines find their working rhythm, a deep thrumming that travels up through the steel deck and into your bones. It's a patient sound, unhurried, as if the boat understands that reaching these islands is less about speed than about the proper observation of distance. 7 hours across the Hecate Strait, the captain mentioned. 7 hours of open water between the mainland and the islands the Haida have called home since the ice melted and the world began again. As the wind picks up, it carries the complex perfume of the North Pacific, salt and bull kelp, the metallic tang of 40-degree water, and something distinctly green and resinous. That scent of yellow cedar, different from the red cedar of the southern coast, sharper, more citrus, like lemon peel left in rain. The air here is substantial, thick with moisture that will turn to rain before noon, carrying the smell of distant forests, where trees older than cathedrals are breathing out. As the wind picks up, it carries the complex perfume of the North Pacific, salt and bull kelp, the metallic tang of 40-degree water, and something distinctly green and resinous. That scent of yellow cedar, different from the red cedar of the southern coast, sharper, more citrus, like lemon peel left in rain. The air here is substantial, thick with moisture that will turn to rain before noon, carrying the smell of distant forests, where trees older than cathedrals are breathing out their morning mist. A gull appears alongside the ferry, riding the wind current created by the boat's passage. Its wings hold perfectly still, just tiny adjustments at the tips, surfing the invisible wave of displaced air. For a moment, its bright, ancient eye catches yours, that look of a creature that has seen 10,000 ferries pass, before it tilts away, swooping down toward the water, where its companions follow the wake, hoping for herring disturbed by the props. Most passengers have retreated inside now that the shoreline has vanished, leaving you with just a handful of others who seem to need this communion with the crossing. Near the bow, 2 women share a thermos, speaking in soft Haida syllables that blend with the wind. A man in a Parks Canada uniform studies a laminated map of Gwaii harness, marking something with careful attention. A family with fishing gear for the late salmon run has claimed the covered benches, their young daughter tracing pictures in the condensation on the windows. Everyone maintains that particular silence of ferry travellers, not unfriendly, just absorbed in their own transition between places. Beneath you, the water has turned the colour of pewter, occasionally breaking into white caps that flash and disappear. This is the Hecate Strait, Kugahal in Haida, known to mariners as one of the most challenging bodies of water in the world. The shallow seafloor here creates waves that stand straight up, walls of water that appear from nowhere. But today it's relatively calm, just a slow rolling swell that the ferry rides with practiced ease, rising gently, pausing at the crest, then sliding down the other side in a rhythm that your body quickly memorizes, like learning a new way to breathe. Finding a sheltered spot behind the wheelhouse, you discover a bench worn smooth by countless other travelers, the wood polished to satin by decades of rain and hands and time. As you settle in, the sounds begin to layer themselves. The constant engine beneath everything, a bass note that never varies. Above it, the wind creates different pitches as it moves around the ferry's superstructure, sometimes whistling, sometimes humming. The irregular slap of waves against the hull adds percussion. And, threading through it all, the calls of birds that materialize from the grey and vanish just as quickly. Murrelets, auklets, the occasional storm petrel dancing on the waves. Time moves differently on the water. Your phone says you've been travelling for 2 hours, but it could have been 20 minutes or half a day. The mainland is long gone now, swallowed by distance and weather, and the islands ahead are still hidden somewhere in the vast grey. You exist in this blue-grey space between, where the ocean stretches endlessly in all directions. Here, the curve of the earth becomes visible, reminding you that you're travelling across the surface of a sphere, suspended between sky and sea. A sudden exhale of mist off the port side makes you stand and move to the rail. Then another, closer this time, perhaps 200 meters away. The distinctive black dorsals cut through the swells. Orcas. A family group travelling the same direction as the ferry. Through the morning quiet, you can hear them breathe. That explosive exhale followed by the quick inhale. Ancient rhythm of mammals returning to the sea. One rises higher, showing the white eye patch, the saddle marking behind the fin that marine biologists use for identification. These are northern residents, fish eaters, following the salmon runs that have brought them to these waters every autumn for millennia. The few passengers still on deck gather quietly at the rail. A child whispers, "Whales," in wonderment. But otherwise, everyone understands instinctively that this moment requires witness without commentary. For several minutes, the orcas pace the ferry, their movements so synchronized they seem to share one mind. The matriarch surfaces last each time, her tall fin marked with small nicks that tell the story of 8 decades in these waters. Then, as if responding to some signal only they can hear, they sound deep and are gone, leaving only smooth circles on the water where they dove. After the whales vanish, the ferry seems to exhale collectively, and the energy shifts, softens, begins its gentle decline toward arrival. You return to your bench, noticing how the engine sound has become so familiar it's almost silence. The wind has dropped to a whisper. Even the gulls have settled into a more languid flight pattern, less urgent in their search, more content to simply glide. Through half-closed eyes, You watch the light change as clouds thicken overhead. Everything becomes softer, edges blurring, the horizon dissolving into a seamless gradient from sea to sky. The temperature has dropped another degree or two. You can feel it on your cheeks, that particular coolness that comes before rain. Sure enough, the first drops begin to fall. So fine they're more like mist, the kind of rain that doesn't fall so much as materialize from the air around you. The ferry's horn sounds again, different from the departure call, longer, lower, like a question posed to the distance. And then you see them, the first shadows of land emerging from the mist ahead. They don't appear suddenly, but seem to gather themselves from the grey, becoming more solid with each passing moment, like a photograph developing slowly in silver light. At first, the islands are just suggestions, darker grey against the lighter grey of sky and sea. But gradually, inexorably, they gain substance. The mountains of Haida Gwaii rise directly from the ocean. No gentle beaches or gradual slopes, just forest-clothed stone emerging from the depths. From here, the trees look like fur, a thick green pelt that covers every surface. You can make out the different textures now, the pointed tops of spruce, the rounder crowns of hemlock, and here and there, the distinctive flat tops of ancient cedars that have lost their leaders to centuries of storms. As the ferry adjusts its course, angling towards Skiddergate Channel, more details emerge from the mist. Along the nearest shore, you can see culturally modified trees. Cedars with great rectangular scars where bark was harvested generations ago for weaving and construction. The trees still living, still growing, bearing their history in their trunks. Ravens wheel between the ferry and the shore, their croaking calls carrying across the water, and you remember that Raven is the creator here, the one who brought light to the world, who discovered the first humans in a clamshell on the beach. The water changes as you approach the shallows, shifting from deep grey through a spectrum of green greys to almost jade where the kelp forests begin. Through the clear water, you can see the golden fronds of bull kelp swaying in the current, some of them 30 feet long, creating underwater forests that shelter herring and salmon, sea otters and seals. The rain continues to fall, so gentle it makes no sound, just a soft beading on every surface, turning the world silver and green. The ferry's engines change their note, gearing down for the approach to Skiddergate Landing. Through the mist, you can make out the dock, the small terminal building, a few vehicles waiting in the rain. But your attention is drawn to the forest behind, those massive trees that seem to be watching the arrival, as they've watched arrivals for thousands of years. Somewhere in that forest are trees that were already ancient when the first European ships arrived, that remember the world before contact, that hold in their rings the history of this place. Your shoulders drop as tension you didn't know you were carrying releases. The crossing is nearly complete. Behind you, the open Pacific stretches to Asia. Ahead, Haida Gwaii waits, wrapped in rain and cedar, in story and silence. The ferry horn sounds once more, soft and low, an announcement to the village that visitors are arriving. Other passengers are gathering their belongings, moving toward the car deck or the foot passenger exit. But you remain for these last moments, watching the islands solidify from dream into reality. The rain has settled into a steady whisper, the kind that can last for days here, that feeds the temperate rainforest and keeps the moss soft and the streams running. Through it, you can smell the land now, that rich mixture of decomposing cedar, living earth, and the salt-sweet smell of the intertidal zone, where the forest meets the sea. As the ferry enters the calm water of the harbour, the motion that has cradled you for 7 hours gradually stills. The engine drops to an idle, then cuts entirely, leaving a sudden quiet that feels enormous. In that quiet, you can hear the rain on the water, the cry of an eagle somewhere in the mist, the gentle bump of the ferry against the dock. You've crossed more than water. You've crossed into a place where the boundaries between past and present, between human and natural, between waking and sleeping, are as soft as this rain, as permeable as mist. The ferry's ramp lowers onto Skydagate Landing with a deep, metallic groan that echoes off the forested hills. As you step from the vessel onto solid ground, your legs need a moment to remember how Earth feels after 7 hours of swaying deck. The rain has settled into that particular West Coast rhythm, not falling so much as hanging in the air, a suspended mist that coats everything in silver beads without ever quite becoming proper drops. You stand for a moment on the landing, letting the stillness settle into your bones. Other passengers move past, some met by family whose embraces need no words, others heading to vehicles with the easy confidence of people coming home. You're in no hurry. After hours of constant motion, this stillness feels like a gift. The air tastes green and salt-sweet. 45 degrees of perfect coolness that wakes your skin without chilling. The small terminal building glows warmly against the grey morning. Through its windows, you can see people inside moving slowly, pouring coffee, studying the weather through rain-streaked glass. A hand-painted sign by the door reads, Gina, Wadluchan Good Ad Quagid. Welcome to Haida Gwaii, in letters that blur slightly in the condensation. Below it, smaller text appears in both languages. Please drive slowly. Tilgadad Dalang Skarnai. Inside, the warmth enfolds you like a blanket. The space smells of coffee and wet wool, cedar panels, and that particular scent of places where the outside is always coming in. An elder sits near the window, speaking soft Haida into her phone, the liquid syllables mixing with the rain's whisper on the roof. A map on the wall shows the islands in detail, with place names in Haida first, English below. Kilkun for Lepus Bay, Hulkia Gaga for Windy Bay, stories embedded in every name. You linger in the warmth, watching through the windows as the village of Skiddergate reveals itself in layers. Modest houses with smoke rising from chimneys, gardens thick with salal and huckleberry bushes, a basketball court where the nets hang heavy with rain. The varied thrush's ethereal whistle spirals through the air, that ascending note that sounds like no other bird, like the forest itself learning to sing. Eventually, you make your way to the small parking lot where your rental car waits, its windows already fogged with the perpetual dampness that defines life here. You sit in the driver's seat, but don't start the engine yet. Instead, you listen to the rain drumming gently on the roof. Watch it stream down the windshield in ever-changing patterns. Feel your breathing slow to match this patient rhythm. The coast road from Skiddergate follows the curve of the land, never straying far from the water's edge. Through your windshield, the world appears in layers of grey and green, the darker grey of the ocean, the silver grey of the sky, and between them, the thousand greens of the temperate rainforest. Sitka spruces rise on your left, their trunks so massive that it would take 6 people holding hands to encircle them. Some of these trees are 800 years old, their bark deeply furrowed, cushioned with moss so thick you could sink your whole hand into it. Your wipers maintain their hypnotic rhythm, sweep and pause, clearing arcs of vision through which the world appears momentarily sharp before blurring again. The sound blends with the whisper of tires on wet pavement, creating a mechanical lullaby that requires nothing from you but presence. Every few hundred meters, gaps in the forest reveal glimpses of the shore, beaches of rounded stones, sorted by size by countless tides, enormous logs of driftwood, bleached silver-white by salt and sun, beds of bull kelp swaying in the shallows like underwater forests. The road itself is narrow, barely 2 lanes, winding gently, following contours established not by engineers, but by the natural path of least resistance, the way deer and bears and humans have always moved along this coast. Along the roadside, salmonberry bushes heavy with moisture lean over the ditches, their berries long since taken by birds. Sword ferns spread in great fountains of green, each frond beaded with water like strings of pearls. Where small creeks cross under the road, you can hear them even through the closed windows, urgent with runoff, carrying the forest down to the sea in an endless conversation between land and water. You pass the Haida Heritage Centre at Haida Gwaii, its modern architecture echoing traditional longhouse forms, 6 towering poles standing guard at its entrance. Even from the road, even through the rain-streaked windows, you can make out the figures carved into the cedar, eagle and raven, whale and wolf, supernatural beings whose stories are written in wood. A raven appears on the road ahead, walking rather than flying, taking its time to move aside as you approach. It's massive, larger than ravens elsewhere, its feathers so black they seem to absorb light. As you pass, it turns its head to watch, and you're struck by the intelligence in that dark eye, the sense of being observed by something that knows more about this place than you ever will. The trees begin to change as you travel north. Red cedars join the spruces, their fibrous bark hanging in long strips, their branches drooping in elegant curves. These are the trees that provided everything for the Haida: houses and canoes, clothing and medicine, cradles and coffins. Even now, dying naturally, they remain standing for decades, becoming nurse logs for the next generation, their nutrients cycling endlessly through the forest system. Through breaks in the trees, you catch glimpses of small settlements, a few houses clustered around a dock, boats pulled up above the high tide line, gardens carved from the forest edge. Smoke rises straight up in the still air, dissipating into the mist. The sound of chainsaws in the distance speaks of winter preparation, wood being laid in for the wet months ahead. The road dips and rises gently, following the subtle topography of the coast. In the valleys, the mist gathers thicker, reducing visibility to just a few car lengths. You slow down, content to move at the pace the weather dictates, surrendering to the island's rhythm rather than imposing your own. There's nowhere urgent to be, nothing that can't wait for safer conditions. A weathered sign announces the approach to Queen Charlotte, though the village itself is still hidden in the mist. The road curves inland slightly, climbing through a section of second-growth forest where the trees are smaller, more uniform. Evidence of logging from decades past. But even here, the forest is reclaiming its wildness. Moss covers every surface. Fallen logs create bridges for small mammals, and mushrooms in improbable colors, purple, orange, pure white, emerge from the decomposing wood. The village of Queen Charlotte, Darjeeling Gids, place of the Haida woman, in the language that shaped these shores for millennia, appears gradually through the rain. First, a few outlying houses where carved poles stand in front yards, not museum pieces but family histories, freshly painted in red and black. Then, the main street, with its handful of shops, their signs reading, "Open, Gya'a," and "Hawa. Thank you for shopping local." You park near the waterfront and step out into the rain. Through the open door of the community center, you hear children's voices practicing something in Haida, their teachers' patient corrections mixing with giggles. The smell of alder smoke drifts from behind a house where someone is smoking salmon in the traditional way, the fish hanging in strips that will feed families through winter. Two elders sit under the covered area by the harbor, working on a cedar basket, their hands moving with practiced certainty despite arthritis-swollen joints. They speak in a mixture of Haida and English, their conversation flowing like water between languages. "The weather's good for weaving," one says in English. "Ta'a skida," the other responds, and they both laugh at some shared understanding that needs no translation. Walking along the waterfront, you notice how the village moves to its own rhythm. A pickup truck passes with a partially carved canoe in the bed, heading toward the carving shed, where the sound of adzes on cedar rings out despite the rain. In the window of the health center, a poster announces, "Potlatch, Season Preparation Workshop, all welcome, Wa Gyaang." The dates are marked in the traditional 13-month Haida calendar, alongside the Gregorian dates. On the beach below the seawall, enormous logs lie scattered like giants' toys. Old-growth trees that fell somewhere upstream were carried to sea by rivers, then deposited here by storms. 3 eagles perch on the largest log, spaced evenly apart, watching the water with profound patience. In Haida tradition, eagle and raven divide the world between them, two moieties that create balance. These eagles know exactly when the tide will turn, when the herring will school in Kadakswa, the time of spring spawning that still governs the year here. The rain softens everything, muffles the sound of trucks, gentles the edges of buildings, creates halos around the streetlights that are beginning to flicker on, though it's only mid-afternoon. This is Garn, the killer whale month of October, when the rains return in earnest and the world turns inward, toward stories and cedar work, toward the indoor seasons of the coast. You find a covered bench and sit for a moment, watching the eagles, watching the water, feeling the rain-soft air settle around you like a blanket. The village hums quietly behind you, the distant sound of the carving shed, a truck door closing, conversations too soft to make out. Everything moves at the pace of rain, the pace of tides, the pace that islands teach to those who stay long enough to learn. At the village's single cafe, warm light spills from windows fogged with conversation and steam. Inside, you glimpse locals at worn wooden tables, some still in rain gear, others settled in for the afternoon. The smell of baking, something with cinnamon and huckleberries, drifts out when the door opens. Back outside, you follow a trail that leads from the village into the forest edge. Within 20 steps, you've entered another world. The canopy closes overhead, filtering what light makes it through the clouds into a green twilight. The ground is soft underfoot, centuries of fallen needles creating a carpet that muffles every step. The air is different here, thicker, more oxygen-rich, filled with the exhalations of trees and moss, and countless invisible organisms breaking down and building up in the endless cycle of forest life. The particular silence of old-growth forest envelops you, not truly quiet, but cushioned, as if the moss absorbs not just sound, but time itself. You can hear your own breathing, suddenly loud in the green hush. Somewhere above, invisible in the canopy, a Stella's jay gives its harsh call. Then silence returns, deeper than before. A small creek crosses the trail, running fast and clear over rounded stones. The sound is musical, each small waterfall and riffle adding its note to the composition. You stand on the simple plank bridge and watch the water, mesmerized by its constancy, its purpose. This water fell as rain on the mountains, filtered through moss and soil, gathered into streams, and now rushes toward the sea, where it will rise as mist and fall as rain again. Endless, circular, perfect. The trail loops back toward the village, emerging at a small park where several totem poles stand. Not ancient relics, but the Bill Reed teaching poles, carved in the 1970s and 80s. Their stories still actively taught. Even through the rain you can see a grandmother with her young grandchild standing before the nearest pole, the elder's finger tracing the figures as she speaks. See Raven there at the top. Her voice carries softly across the wet grass. Sky Unjadi, he brought light to the world. And below him, that's Tsan, the beaver, who taught the people how to build. Each figure connects to our family, to our stories. The child listens with the deep attention that comes before words, absorbing not just information, but the cadence of cultural knowledge being passed down, as it has been for hundreds of generations. The poles themselves are magnificent, even in their weathering. The cedar has aged to silver grey, with patches of sage-green lichen painting abstract patterns on the wood. But the figures remain clear. Killer whale with his tall dorsal fin and blowhole, his story of transformation between sea and land. Bear mother with her cubs, teaching about the relationship between human and animal worlds. What strikes you most is how alive these poles remain. They're not monuments to a dead past, but active teachers, still doing their work. Ravens, the actual birds, perch on Raven's carved head, adding their croaking commentary. A small offering of tobacco sits at the base of one pole, fresh despite the rain. Someone's prayer or thanks still carrying upward. The rain intensifies slightly, sending the grandmother and child toward shelter, their lesson continuing as they walk. Tomorrow we'll visit the other poles, she promises. The ones your great-great-grandfather helped raise. Their voices fade into the sound of rain on cedar, on earth, on the endless conversation between sky and ground. You stand alone with the poles now, feeling their presence, not mystical but practical, the way good teachers are present even when silent. The carved eyes seem to watch the village, the water, the forest edge, keeping track of changes and continuities, holding memories in wood. Behind them, the forest rises into mist, those 1,000-year-old trees that provided the cedar, that hold their own stories in their rings, that will provide cedar for poles not yet imagined. The afternoon light, what little filters through the clouds, is beginning its slow fade toward evening. The rain has gentled to the finest mist, so soft now, you only know it's still falling by the tiny beads that gather, slowly, on every surface. You make your way back to your car, each step deliberate and unhurried. The village is settling into its evening rhythm, porch lights beginning to glow warm yellow through the grey, wood smoke rising straight up in the still air. The sound of someone chopping kindling, rhythmic and patient. Chop, pause, chop, pause. The ancient rhythm of splitting wood for warmth. In your car now, engine off, windows cracking fog at the edges, you sit and simply watch the village complete its day. Through the mist, you can see into lit windows, families gathering for dinner, the blue flicker of televisions, someone at a table working on what might be beadwork or cedar weaving, their head bent in concentration. The eagles have left their driftwood perches, gone to wherever eagles go when darkness comes. But the logs remain, patient and silver, waiting for tomorrow's birds, tomorrow's tides. The ocean breathes against the shore, in and out, in and out. That rhythm that never stops, never hurries, never needs to be anywhere but here. A raven makes one last croaking call from somewhere in the deepening grey. Then, silence, or what passes for silence in this place of constant, gentle sound. The rain whispers on. The ocean breathes on. The village settles deeper into evening. You start the car finally, but drive nowhere yet. The engine idles soft and low, adding its quiet hum to the evening's layers of sound. Through the windshield, the world has become impressionistic, shapes suggesting themselves rather than declaring. The boundary between sea and sky dissolved, between village and forest blurred, everything becoming one thing, one grey-green breathing presence. Your own breathing has found the ocean's rhythm now, slow, deep, patient as those 1,000-year-old trees, patient as the poles that stand witness, patient as the rain that has been falling here, in one form or another, since the world began. This is Haida Gwaii in the evening rain, not trying to be anything, not rushing toward anything, just being exactly what it is, has always been, will always be. This place where the forest meets the sea, where stories live in wood and water, where time moves like honey, like sap in cedar, like thoughts becoming dreams. The village fades behind you as you finally drive on, but its rhythm stays with you. That patient pulse of island life, of rain and tide, of stories passed between generations, of eagles waiting for fish, of cedar slowly growing into tomorrow's canoes and poles. Everything here knows how to wait, how to be still, how to exist in the space between one breath and the next, one tide and the next, one story and the next. And now, settling deeper into the evening, you're learning this patience too. The Haida Heritage Centre at Haida Gwaii emerges from the morning mist like something that has always been here, its curved walls echoing the lines of traditional longhouses, its modern glass reflecting the ancient forest. You've driven back from Queen Charlotte as the rain intensified, seeking shelter and something more, a deeper understanding of these islands that seem to exist in multiple times simultaneously. The parking lot is nearly empty this grey morning. Only a few vehicles sit beaded with rain, their windows fogged with the breath of sleeping dogs, waiting for their people. You sit in your car for a moment longer, watching the rain stream down your windshield, letting the drive's rhythm fade from your muscles. Your shoulders drop as you exhale, already feeling the day's pace slowing. As you step out, the rain greets you, cool on your skin, carrying the scent of wet cedar even here in the parking lot. 6 monumental totem poles rise before the entrance, each one telling a different story, each one carved in the past 40 years, but holding memories that stretch back to the beginning of the world. You walk slowly toward them, drawn to touch the nearest pole despite the rain. The cedar is smooth and cold under your palm, worn silky by other hands, other touches. The rain streams down its faces, raven and eagle, killer whale and grizzly bear, making the wood gleam dark as blood where it's wet. At the entrance you pause, hand on the door handle, feeling the temperature difference even through the glass, warmth radiating from inside. The door opens with a soft pneumatic hiss, and you step through into another world. The temperature embraces you immediately. Not just warmth, but a particular quality of warmth, like being wrapped in a blanket that has been drying by the fire. Your rain-damp clothes suddenly feel heavy. The scent fills your lungs, cedar so rich you can taste it on your tongue, mixed with something older, deeper, the smell of gatherings and ceremonies, of hundreds of people sharing food and stories in this space over the years. You stand just inside the entrance, letting your eyes adjust to the softer light, letting your body adjust to the stillness after the rain's constant motion. The main hall opens before you, vast and hushed, its ceiling soaring up to where massive beams meet in traditional joints that require no nails. The sound of rain is muffled here but not gone. A distant drumming on the roof that makes the silence inside feel held, cupped, protected. 5 traditional houses face the central space, their fronts painted in the bold red and black designs that have identified Haida families for millennia. Each house represents one of the southern villages: Skadans, Kumshewa, Tanu, Gwaii, and Hilnagai itself. Villages that were abandoned during the smallpox epidemics, but whose names and stories persist. The light inside is soft, filtered through windows that face the grey sky and reflected off the polished concrete floors. It's the kind of light that makes you want to speak in whispers, not from reverence exactly, but from a recognition that this is a place where listening matters more than talking. Somewhere, you can hear water, a fountain perhaps, or rain guttering off the roof, creating a constant, gentle percussion that makes the silence feel alive rather than empty. Near the central fire pit, which glows with electric light now but still holds the memory of real flames, an elder sits on one of the bent cedar boxes that line the walls. She's working on something, cedar bark by the look of it, her fingers separating the fibers with practiced ease. The soft shush, shush, shush of the bark being processed creates its own rhythm. She looks up as you approach, her face mapping decades of weather and laughter, and pats the box beside her, an invitation without words. You sit slowly, feeling the wood's surprising warmth through your damp clothes. The box is lower than you expected, and your knees rise slightly, making you feel grounded, connected to the floor. The polished concrete is cool under your feet, even through your shoes. For a long moment, you both simply exist in the space, watching the rain through the high windows, listening to the building breathe around you, the subtle creak of wood expanding with warmth, the whisper of air through ventilation, the continued soft rhythm of her hands on cedar. "Here," she says finally, offering you a strip of bark. "Feel this." The bark is softer than you expected, almost silky, with a faint warmth from her handling. As you hold it, she shows you how to separate the fibers, your fingers learning from hers. The scent releases as you work, sharp, clean, like the forest after rain, but concentrated, essential. "This place," she says, her voice matching the rhythm of her hands, soft and steady, "holds all our stories." Not old stories. There are no old stories. Stories that are still happening, still teaching. She pauses to adjust your grip on the bark, her hands warm and dry against yours. This tree was cut with respect, with thanks. Its spirit is still here in your hands, becoming something new. The work is meditative, repetitive. Pull, separate, smooth. Pull, separate, smooth. Your breathing naturally slows to match the rhythm. The rain continues its percussion on the roof, and you realize you're swaying slightly, unconsciously, finding the building's rhythm. The elder notices and nods approvingly. She tells you about the smallpox, but her voice remains steady, factual rather than emotional. Like rain is factual. Like winter is factual. We almost disappeared, she says, her hands never stopping their work. From tens of thousands to fewer than 600. Pull, separate, smooth. But look. She gestures with her chin toward the entrance, where a school group is just arriving, their excited voices muffled by distance. We're still here, still teaching, still learning. Your hands are learning the cedar's rhythm now, finding their own way into the work. The bark releases its scent with each pull, and you breathe it in, feeling it settle into your chest, warm and grounding. Through the smoke hole in the roof, now covered with glass but still functionally open to the sky, you watch clouds drift past in layers. Some are dark with rain, others lighter, creating a constantly shifting pattern of grey and silver. The elder follows your gaze. That's where the smoke would go during potlatches. Sometimes ceremonies would last for days. People would sleep right here, wake up, eat, dance, witness the giving of names and the passing of responsibilities. The smoke would carry it all up to the ancestors. She returns to her work but continues talking, her voice finding the rhythm of her hands. Every creature here has a story. Raven, Skaga. He's the one who released the first humans from a clamshell on the beach, found them there after the flood, all tucked inside like clams themselves. A small smile plays at the corners of her mouth. Imagine his surprise. He was just looking for dinner. The school group has gathered near one of the house fronts where a younger guide, perhaps in his 30s, begins to explain the painted designs. His voice carries across the hall, and the elder nods approvingly. "That's my nephew," she says with quiet pride. "He's learning to tell the stories right. Not just the words, but the way they need to be told." You listen as he points to a figure on the house front, a killer whale with a human face visible in its blowhole. "This is Carcass," he tells the children. "Sometimes killer whale, sometimes wolf. He can transform because in the beginning, all beings could change their forms. The boundary between human and animal wasn't fixed like it is now." One child raises her hand to ask why, and he considers carefully before answering. Because everything was still learning what it wanted to be. The elder beside you makes a small sound of approval. That's good. He's finding his way into the story. She sets aside her cedar work and stands, joints creaking slightly. "Come. I want to show you something." She leads you to one of the massive house posts, its surface carved with figures stacked one atop another, each emerging from or transforming into the next. The wood is old. You can tell by its color, the way it's darkened with age. But the carving is still sharp, still speaking. "This post is from Tanu," she says. "One of the few things brought out before the village was completely abandoned. See here?" She points to a figure near the base. "That's Foam Woman. She controls the salmon. If you don't treat them with respect, she keeps them in her house under the sea." A finger traces upward. "And this is Thunderbird. When he blinks, lightning flashes. When he flaps his wings, thunder rolls. Higher still, the wasco, sea wolf, who hunts whales like wolves hunt deer. At the very top, barely visible in the hall's shadowy heights. And Raven again. Always Raven at the top or bottom, beginning or end. He's the one who shapes the world through his appetites, his curiosity, his mistakes that turn out to be exactly what was needed. You stand together before the post, necks craned upward, and you realize that you're not just looking at art or mythology, but at a map of relationships, of transformations, of the continuous flow between states of being. The figures seem to move in the shifting light, their eyes following you, their mouths about to speak or sing or cry out their stories. Yagudang, the elder says quietly. That's what we call it. Respect for all living things. Not just being polite, but understanding that everything is connected, everything is related, everything affects everything else. The guide has brought the school group to the central area now, and they sit in a circle on the floor. You and the elder have moved closer, sitting on boxes at the edge of their circle. The concrete floor must be cold under the children, but they don't seem to notice, their attention completely focused as the guide produces a drum. A beautiful thing, painted with a killer whale design, the leather worn smooth from generations of hands. He begins slowly. So slowly, you're not sure at first if it's drumming or just preparation. Thumb, thumb, thumb. The space between beats is vast, oceanic. This is the heartbeat, he tells them, his voice soft. Every song starts with the heartbeat. Close your eyes and feel it. You close your eyes too, and immediately the drum becomes everything. You feel it through the floor, up through the cedar box, into your bones. Thumb, thumb. The vibration travels through the concrete, through the wood, through your body. Your actual heartbeat begins to sync with it, slowing, steadying. The elder's breathing beside you has deepened. The children have gone completely silent. Even the rain seems to have gentled, as if listening. The guide begins to sing, his voice starting so soft it might be humming. Wordless at first, just tone and breath. The sound doesn't fill the space so much as grow from it, as if the building itself is remembering how to sing. Your eyelids feel heavy behind your closed eyes. The warmth of the building, the rhythm of the drum, the vibration through your body. It all combines into something hypnotic. You're aware of swaying slightly, your body moving in tiny circles, like kelp in a gentle current. The cedar scent seems stronger now, or maybe you're just more aware of it, mixed with the leather smell of the drum, the faint sweetness of the elder's tea, the ever-present rain-touched air. The song continues, verses in Haida that you don't understand but that don't need understanding. The meaning is in the rhythm, in the rise and fall, in the way the sound moves through your chest. You feel your shoulders drop completely. Tension you didn't know you were holding, releasing into the wooden box, into the floor, into the earth below. Time becomes fluid. The song might last minutes or an hour. The drum continues its heartbeat rhythm, and you float in it, suspended between waking and sleeping, between listening and dreaming. Somewhere in the periphery, you're aware of the children starting to fidget, of the guide bringing the song to a gradual close, but it all feels distant, unimportant, like something happening in another room, another time. The drumming stops, but its echo continues in your chest, in the vibration of the building, in the space between your heartbeats. The school group is preparing to leave, their voices returning but muffled, dreamlike. You remain on the cedar box, eyes still closed, not quite ready to surface from wherever the drum has taken you. "Stay as long as you like," the elder says softly, and you feel rather than see her stand. Her footsteps fade, soft shuffles on the concrete, growing distant. You're alone now, but the word doesn't fit. The carved figures watch from their posts, the houses hold their doorways open. The rain continues, softer now. Or maybe your hearing has softened, everything filtered through this drowsy peace. You open your eyes slowly, and the light has changed. Still grey but warmer somehow, like looking through honey. Your body feels heavy, pleasantly heavy, as if you could melt into this cedar box and become part of the building's structure. You stand eventually, muscles responding slowly, and walk to one of the house posts, drawn by something you can't name. Your hand finds the carved surface, foam woman at the base, her story of controlling the salmon. The wood is smooth, almost soft, worn by countless other hands. You trace the carving up to Thunderbird, feeling the transitions, the places where one being becomes another. The texture changes, rougher where the carving is deep, polished smooth on the raised surfaces. Your fingers move without thought, learning the stories through touch. The warmth is making you drowsy. You find another cedar box, this one in a corner where the light is softest, and sit again. Through the smoke hole above, clouds drift in layers, some dark, some silver, creating patterns that shift and merge. You watch them the way you might watch a fire, without thought, without need for meaning. Just watching, just breathing. Your eyelids close again, not sleeping, but resting in that space between. Sounds layer themselves, rain on roof, distant voices somewhere in the building, the creak of wood, your own breathing. Each sound is distinct, but also part of something larger, like instruments in an orchestra, playing a piece so slow, so quiet, that you can barely tell it's music. Minutes pass, or hours. Time has become irrelevant. You're simply here, held by the building, by the stories, by the rain that seems to have been falling forever, and will fall forevermore. Your breathing has found the building's rhythm. Slow inhale as the wood creaks, slow exhale as it settles. You could stay here forever, become another carved figure, another story waiting to be told. Eventually, though there's no urgency to it, you surface from this deep quiet. Your body knows it's time to move, but slowly, carefully, like emerging from warm water. You stand, joints stiff from stillness, and notice how the light has shifted to late afternoon gold despite the steady clouds. How long have you been here? Your phone remains untouched in your pocket. Clock time doesn't matter in this space. You walk slowly through the hall, saying goodbye without words to each housepost, each carved figure. Your hand trails along the cedar boxes, feeling their warmth, their smoothness. At the entrance to one of the houses, you pause, looking into the dim interior where chiefs once held court, where families gathered, where stories were told through endless winter nights. You can almost hear them, voices layered through time, all telling, all listening, all continuing. Near the exit, you pass the gift shop, where an artist sits carving argillite, that soft black stone found only here. His hands move in the same rhythm you learned with the cedar bark. Patient, certain, unhurried. Pull, carve, smooth. Pull, carve, smooth. He doesn't look up, completely absorbed, and you don't disturb him. This too is part of the stories, the making, the continuing, the passing forward. At the door you turn back once more. The hall stretches before you, vast and peaceful, holding its stories, its warmth, its patient welcome. The carved figures watch from their posts, and you feel seen, acknowledged, included in the ongoing story of this place. The drum's rhythm still echoes faintly in your chest, a second heartbeat that will travel with you. Outside, the rain greets you gently, cooler than you remembered but not shocking, like stepping from one dream into another. The forest seems closer, more present, every tree a potential pole, every sound a possible story. You walk slowly to your car, aware of each footstep on the wet pavement, each breath of cedar-scented air. In the driver's seat, you sit without starting the engine. Through the rain-streaked windshield, the Heritage Centre looks like it's dissolving into mist, becoming part of the forest, part of the rain, part of the grey-green dream that is Haida Gwaii. Your hands still smell of cedar bark. Your chest still holds the drum's rhythm. Your body still carries the warmth of those ancient stories, new stories, stories that continue, whether you're listening or not. The rain intensifies slightly, drumming on the car roof with the same patient rhythm as the drum inside, as your heartbeat, as the tide that's turning somewhere beyond the trees. Everything here moves to the same deep rhythm, and now, finally, so do you. The stories will continue in the Heritage Centre, in the forest, in the rain. And as you finally start the car and pull away, you carry a piece of them with you, woven into your breath, your heartbeat, your dreams. The drive north from the Heritage Centre follows the island's eastern shore, where the afternoon rain has finally exhausted itself into a fine mist that barely registers on your windshield. The road to Talel winds through sections where the forest presses so close that branches scrape the car's sides with soft whispers. Through gaps in the trees, you catch glimpses of the ocean, grey-green and restless, its surface textured like hammered metal. At the Naikun trailhead, only one other vehicle sits beaded with moisture. A rust-spotted truck with a kayak strapped to its roof, its owner nowhere in sight. The sign reads, Pasuta Trail, Kuusta Ka'ali, in both English and Haida, the carved letters softened by moss and age. Below, smaller text reminds visitors, This is traditional Haida territory. Take only pictures. The forest remembers. You sit in the car for a moment after turning off the engine, letting the journey's vibration fade from your bones. Through the windshield, the forest edge appears like a dark wall, mysterious and patient. The temperature gauge reads 52 degrees. You step out slowly, and the air embraces you. Cool, damp, so clean it seems to wash your lungs from the inside. The mist doesn't fall but simply exists, suspended between worlds, beading on your skin like the gentlest blessing. Standing beside the car, you close your eyes and just breathe. In. The scent of wet cedar and decomposing needles. Out. Letting the mainland world release from your shoulders. The trailhead draws you forward, but your feet move slowly, as if already understanding this place requires a different pace. Where the path enters the forest, you pause, hand on the rough bark of the boundary tree, a massive spruce that marks the threshold between worlds. The bark is deeply furrowed, damp with mist, cold under your palm. You can feel the tree's age through your skin, centuries of patience standing guard. Stepping onto the trail is like entering a cathedral. The sound of the ocean, just audible from the parking area, immediately vanishes. The forest swallows all external sound, replacing it with its own profound quiet. Not silence, but something fuller, the way a held breath contains everything. The path is soft underfoot, centuries of fallen needles creating a carpet that muffles every step. Your breathing naturally deepens in the oxygen-rich air, each exhale visible in small puffs that dissipate into the green twilight. The canopy above is so dense that the mist barely penetrates. What little moisture makes it through drips occasionally. Plop, plop. Each drop a small percussion in the quietude. The light here exists outside normal time. Neither day nor evening, but something between. Something green and ancient. The temperature drops several degrees, the forest holding coolness like a secret. You pull your jacket closer, grateful for the warmth against the cedar-scented chill. Moving deeper into the forest, you notice the culturally modified trees, cedars with long rectangular scars where bark was harvested generations ago. The trees survived, grew around their wounds, continued reaching toward light. These scars are historical documents, evidence that the Haida have walked these paths for thousands of years, taking what they needed with respect, ensuring the forest's continuance. A varied thrush calls from somewhere above, that ascending whistle that sounds like the forest remembering how to sing. Then quiet returns, deeper for having been broken. Your footsteps slow without conscious thought. There's no rush here, no destination more important than this step, this breath. This moment of moving through green light. One cedar beside the trail is truly ancient, perhaps 15 feet across, its base fluted like a Gothic column. A cavity at its base shows char from some lightning strike centuries past, yet the tree lives on, rooting life around damage. You duck slightly and step inside the hollow. The space is surprisingly warm, insulated by the massive trunk. The smell intensifies. Cedar oil, earth, the sweet decay that feeds new growth. Standing inside this living cave, you can hear the tree's life, a subtle creaking, the whisper of sap moving, or perhaps just imagination. But it feels real. This sense of being held by something patient and alive. Continuing along the trail, your body finds its forest rhythm, slower than walking pace, more like moving meditation. The path winds between giants, some standing, others fallen, to become nurse logs hosting entire communities. On one massive fallen cedar, a perfect line of smaller trees grows, their roots reaching down through the decaying wood to find earth. The fallen giant will take 500 years to fully return to soil, feeding its children the entire time. Where the trail dips, pools of darker coolness gather. The temperature shifts are subtle but noticeable. Warmer where gaps in the canopy let in light, cooler in the hollows where cold air settles. Your skin becomes a map of these variations, reading the forest through sensation. The scent changes too, earthier in the low spots, sharper with cedar where you brush against low-hanging branches. A sound gradually becomes audible, not distinct at first, just a presence beneath the forest quiet. The ocean. Its breathing grows stronger with each step forward, though the trees still press close, showing no sign of ending. Your breathing has unconsciously matched this distant rhythm. In with the sound's approach, out with its retreat. Your body finding the planet's pulse even before your mind recognizes it. The trees begin to change, shaped by salt wind into fantastic forms. Branches all reach inland, away from the ocean's constant push, creating trees that look perpetually wind-blown even in today's stillness. Then, between one step and the next, the forest ends. The transition is so abrupt it makes you sway slightly, inner ear adjusting to massive space after the forest's embrace. Before you stretches Tlaikwa, North Beach in English, endless grey sand between dark forest and darker sea, disappearing into mist in both directions. You stand at this threshold for a long moment, letting your body adjust. The temperature is warmer here, maybe 55 degrees, the ocean air softer than the forest's sharp coolness. The mist tastes of salt now, no longer the green flavour of the trees. Your shoulders, which are drawn up against the forest chill, slowly release. The Pursuta shipwreck lies a few hundred meters north, barely visible through the haze, dark bones against pale sand. But you don't walk toward it immediately. Instead, you sit on a massive driftwood log at the forest edge, feeling the need to transition slowly between worlds. The log is smooth as silk, worn by decades of wind and rain. Despite the grey day, it holds a faint warmth, as if remembering sunnier times. From here you can observe both worlds, the forest dark and still behind you, the ocean vast and breathing before you. The tide is out, leaving a wide expanse of beach marked with the calligraphy of bird tracks. Ravens, gulls, sandpipers, their paths crossing and recrossing in conversations written in sand. At the tide line, rows of shells mark the ocean's highest reach, neat as a garden border. Rising from the log, slowly, joints already stiff from the forest's cool dampness, you begin walking toward the shipwreck. The sand is firm near the forest, but softer as you approach the wreck, your feet sinking slightly with each step. It's tiring, this soft sand walking, and you find yourself moving even slower, pausing often to rest, to observe, to simply stand and breathe the salt air. The pursuiter emerges from the mist gradually, revealing itself in stages. First, the highest ribs, curved like questions against the sky. Then the lower beams, half buried in sand. Finally, the full skeleton, what remains of a log barge wrecked here in 1928. Nearly a century of storms have reduced it to these essential forms. Wood worn to silver-grey silk, smooth as driftwood, warm under your palm despite the cool air. You run your hand along one beam, feeling its perfect smoothness. Barnacles colonize the lower portions, and in pools around the wreck's base, entire communities thrive. Purple sea stars, green anemones, hermit crabs navigating their miniature worlds. These pools are ka'au ka'un, the tide pools that Haida children have explored for millennia, learning the ocean's rhythms, the names of creatures, the proper way to harvest without depleting. The ocean breathes steadily. 7 waves, then a pause. 7 more, then a pause. Skarnad lang. The ocean is speaking, as the elders say. Your breathing naturally syncs with this rhythm. Leaving the wreck, you walk north along the beach, but slowly, so slowly. Your legs feel heavy now, the combination of soft sand and forest dampness making each step deliberate. After what might be minutes or an hour, time moves differently here. You turn back toward the forest through a different gap in the trees. This path is less traveled, narrower, marked only by a subtle parting in the salal bushes. The transition back to forest is like slipping underwater, the vast space suddenly intimate, the grey light becoming green shadow, the ocean's voice fading to whisper, then silence. The temperature drops immediately. 52 degrees becomes 48, the chill raising goosebumps on your arms. The trees here are even older. Cedars 20 feet across, their bases disappearing into skirts of their own shed bark. Some show the marks of ancient bark stripping, tal tsu, where Haida weavers gathered materials for baskets and clothing. The scars have healed into smooth calluses, the trees incorporating their history into their growth. A moss-covered rock appears beside the trail, shaped perfectly for sitting. You sink onto it gratefully, legs trembling slightly from the beach walking. The moss compresses under you, damp but not unpleasantly so, insulating you from the stone's deeper cold. Here in the green darkness, surrounded by giants, you feel your eyelids growing heavy. The oxygen-rich air, the profound quiet, the day's gentle exertion. It all combines into a drowsiness that starts in your bones. You could sleep here, become another moss-covered stone. But the fading light, what little penetrates the canopy, suggests evening approaching. Rising requires effort, muscles protesting the forest dampness. The path back to the beach is dreamlike, your feet finding their way, while your mind floats somewhere between waking and sleeping. At the beach, everything has changed. The tide has turned, waves reaching higher with each set. The light, grey all day, has found some magic at the horizon. For a few minutes the world transforms. Grey becomes gold. The ocean turns molten. Mist becomes visible as individual drops, each one a tiny prism. Even your skin seems to glow in this unexpected radiance. You find another driftwood log, an entire tree trunk worn to marble smoothness, and sink onto it heavily, gratefully. Your body feels like it's melting into the wood, boundaries softening. The log is surprisingly warm, holding the day's accumulated heat. Around its base, treasures scatter. Shells worn translucent, agates polished by millennia of waves, tangles of bull kelp writing messages in a language older than words. Ravens gather on nearby logs, 5 of them, black forms sharp against the golden evening. They call in voices that range from liquid notes to ancient croaks. Ska-gai la-ga kill la-gang. The ravens are speaking. One hops closer, fixes you with an eye that holds too much intelligence, then returns to its companions. The golden light lasts perhaps 10 minutes before the sun sinks below the horizon. The world returns to grey, but a warmer grey, touched with pink and purple. The temperature drops immediately. You feel it on your face, your hands. The ravens lift off in unison, wings whooshing in the quiet air, heading for their roost. You remain on the log as darkness gathers. Your eyelids are so heavy now, opening and closing without your control. Each time they close, you see patterns behind them. The forest's green light, the ocean's rhythm visualized, the shipwreck's bones becoming whale bones, becoming tree branches, becoming neural pathways, all connected. The ocean glows faintly where waves break. Phosphorescence or imagination. You can't tell and don't care. Each crash releases brief green light as if the sea dreams in light. A seal surfaces close to shore, its breathing audible. Whoosh. Then silence. Then another breath. 2 mammals acknowledging each other across the boundary of worlds. Its presence feels like recognition, like belonging. Time becomes liquid. You might have been sitting for minutes or hours. The driftwood has become part of your body, or your body has become driftwood. The boundary between self and surroundings dissolves like mist. Stars emerge, first one, then dozens. Then the river of light the Haida call Ki-ish-adai, the Milky Way, the dog-salmon river in the sky. Your breathing has slowed to match the waves. In, out, in, out. Eventually, though there's no urgency, the cold penetrates your drowsy state. Standing requires enormous effort, joints stiff as driftwood. The walk back to the forest trail happens in slow motion, each step deliberate, careful, as if moving through honey. In the darkness, the path is more felt than seen. A deeper black between the trees, feet finding their way by memory or instinct. The forest welcomes you back with its familiar silence, its scent of cedar and earth intensified by night dampness. The temperature in here feels warmer now, protected, held. Your hands trail along tree trunks for guidance, each one a different texture. Rough spruce, fibrous cedar, smooth hemlock. At the parking area, your car sits alone, covered in heavy dew that runs in streams down the windshield. Inside, the windows fog immediately from your warmth. You sit without starting the engine, not ready to break the spell. Through the foggy glass, stars peek through gaps in the canopy. Your hands smell of salt and cedar. Your clothes carry the forest's dampness. Your body holds the ocean's rhythm. The silence is complete. No wind, no birds. Just your breathing and the memory of waves. Everything on these islands exists in this margin where worlds meet. Forest and shore, sleeping and waking, past and present. All boundaries soft as mist. Finally, you start the engine, but let it idle. Heat slowly clearing the windows. The dashboard clock shows hours have passed, but time feels irrelevant. Through the clearing windshield, the forest stands patient, ancient, watching with accumulated wisdom. The ocean's sound carries faintly, even here, muffled but eternal. You shift into gear and pull onto the empty road, driving slowly, carefully, still partially in the dream of forest and shore. Your body moves the car, but your mind remains on that driftwood log, watching stars emerge, feeling the boundary between self and world dissolve. The headlights create a tunnel through darkness, trees appearing and disappearing like thoughts at the edge of sleep. The road curves gently, following the island's contours, never forcing, always accommodating. This is Yagudang made manifest, not just respect, but recognition of your place in the web. Today you've walked between worlds, witnessed the conversation that has been ongoing since these islands rose from the sea. And now, as the road carries you back toward shelter, toward sleep, you carry that conversation in your body, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the salt on your skin, in the cedar scent that will follow you into dreams. The drive back from North Beach follows the darkening road through corridors of black trees, your headlights creating a moving tunnel through the night. Your eyelids feel heavy already, the day's wandering settling into your bones like sediment. Twice, you catch yourself blinking longer than necessary, the road blurring momentarily before you refocus. The car's heater works against the evening chill, 45 degrees now and dropping. Its warm air making you drowsier with each mile. Your lodging sits where Haida Gwaii, Talel in English, meets the ocean, a handful of cabins nestled between forest and shore. Through tired eyes, you recognize the weathered cedar building, its metal roof silver in the starlight. The gravel drive crunches under your tires, the sound seeming louder in your drowsy state, each pop and shift of stones distinct. You turn off the engine and sit for a moment, gathering energy for the final tasks before sleep. Your body feels heavy, reluctant to move from the warm seat. Through the windshield, the porch light glows, a single bulb in a mason jar, left on by someone who understood you'd return tired, ready for rest. The thoughtfulness of this small gesture brings unexpected comfort. When you finally open the door, The cold embraces you, 45 degrees sharp against your sleep-warm skin. It wakes you just enough to walk the short path to the door, keys fumbling in fingers already clumsy with approaching sleep. The ocean breathes nearby, waves collapsing on sand with the rhythm of something vast and patient, already sleeping. The cabin door resists slightly, wood swollen with salt air, requiring effort that feels enormous in your tired state. Inside, the temperature reads 50 degrees on the old thermometer, barely warmer than outside. But the stillness makes it feel like sanctuary. You lean against the closed door for a moment, eyes adjusting to the darkness, body adjusting to being finally, truly stopped. By feel more than sight, you find the candle on the side table. Beeswax, hand-dipped, left by the same thoughtful soul who lit the porch light. The match flares bright enough to make you squint, and the candle catches, its warm glow revealing the cabin's simple interior. Cedar walls with grain like flowing water. A bed piled with what look like chilcat blankets. Geometric patterns of eagle and raven clan designs in cream and brown wool. The wood stove waits in the corner, already laid with kindling. You kneel before it slowly, knees protesting the day's walking, and begin the ancient ritual of calling fire from wood. First, the crumpled paper. Yesterday's tide table from the look of it. Then the smallest twigs, arranged like a tiny shelter. The match trembles slightly in your tired fingers as you light the paper. The fire catches reluctantly at first, smoke curling up, making you cough. But then, the cedar kindling takes, that eager wood that burns hot and fast, and orange light begins to dance behind the glass door. You add slightly larger pieces, each one carefully placed, and sit back on your heels, mesmerized by the growing flames. The heat touches your face first, then your hands, gradually pushing back the cabin's chill. 50 degrees becomes 55, then 60, the warmth making your eyelids impossibly heavy. You remain kneeling before the stove longer than necessary, caught in the hypnotic dance of flames, your body reluctant to move from this perfect spot where heat meets your skin. The fire settles into its rhythm, soft pops of pitch pockets, the whisper of gases escaping, the subtle tick of expanding metal. Each sound arrives separately in your tired mind, with space between, like counting between lightning and thunder. Pop, tick, whisper. The warmth spreads through the small cabin, chasing cold from corners, softening the air. Eventually, muscles protesting, you rise from the floor. The simple act of standing feels monumental. Your clothes carry the day's journey, salt from the beach, pitch from leaning against trees, the persistent dampness that defines these islands. You peel them away slowly, each movement deliberate, hanging them on hooks near the stove where they'll dry by morning. The cedar walls glow amber in the firelight, their grain seeming to move, to flow like slow rivers. On the small bedside table sits a carved object you hadn't noticed before, A small argillite pendant in the shape of a raven, left perhaps by a previous guest, or placed here by the cabin's keeper as protection, as welcome. You touch it gently, the stone smooth and cool under your fingertip. Through the window above the bed, darkness is complete now, except for stars. So many stars they seem impossible, like scattered salt on black cloth. The Milky Way arcs overhead, that river of light flowing between worlds. The bed calls with irresistible gravity. Your legs shake slightly as you stand beside it, muscles finally admitting their exhaustion. The wooden floor is cold under bare feet, a brief, shocking cold that paradoxically makes the bed seem even more inviting. The mattress sighs as you sit, old springs adjusting to your weight. You run your hand across the blankets, definitely chilcat weaving, the wool rough but warm, the patterns telling stories in thread. Eagle on one side, raven on the other, the two moieties that divide the Haida world, now holding you between them. Lying down requires no thought, your body simply surrendering to horizontal. The mattress accepts you, conforming to tired muscles, cradling the length of your spine. You pull the blankets up slowly, their weight surprising, comforting, like being held by the earth itself. 62 degrees in the room now, but under the wool it's warmer, your body heat trapped and reflected back. Through the window above the bed, stars pierce the darkness. So many stars your tired mind can't process them individually, seeing instead a river of light. Ki'is Zadai, the celestial river the Haida say carries souls between worlds. Your eyes close without decision, too heavy to hold open. But the star river continues behind your eyelids, phosphorescent, pulsing with your heartbeat. The ocean maintains its rhythm outside. 7 waves, then pause, then 7 more. Your breathing finds this pattern without trying. In with the waves approach, the pause held in your chest. Out with their retreat. Your shoulders sink deeper into the mattress, the last tension releasing from muscles you didn't know were holding. The cedar smoke from the stove sweetens the air, mixing with the wool's lanolin scent, creating something ancient, protective. A saw-whet owl calls from the forest, that rhythmic sound like a blade on whetstone that gave the bird its name. In Haida stories, Jana Keel, the saw-whet owl, carries messages between the living and spirit worlds. Its call seems to come from farther away with each repetition. Or perhaps you're drifting farther from waking. The fire settles in the stove with small ticks and pops, metal contracting, wood shifting, finding its place for the long burn through the night. Each sound arrives separately, with space between, like raindrops before a storm. Tick, pop, settle. Your body grows heavier, arms weighing down the blankets, legs seeming to sink through the mattress. Even your eyelids have weight now, pressing closed with certainty. The boundary between your body and the bed dissolves. You're becoming part of the cabin, part of the island, part of the night. The waves continue, eternal, patient, breathing for you now so you don't have to. The owl has gone silent, message delivered. Only the ocean remains. In, hold, out, rest. Time stretches like honey, each moment expanding, containing whole seasons. You're floating now, or sinking, both the same. Down through wool and wood, through cedar and stone, into the deep dreaming of the island itself. Consciousness flickers like the candle you forgot to blow out. Present one moment, absent the next, returning briefly to notice the fire's glow painting cave paintings on the ceiling. Then gone again. Deeper this time. The ocean sounds seem to come from inside your chest now, or your chest has become the ocean, breathing with tides that turned before humans walked these shores, will turn long after. Eternal, patient, knowing. A dream that isn't quite dream yet. Walking the beach, but the beach is also the forest. Trees growing from sand. Waves breaking against cedar trunks. The shipwreck reassembling into a living tree. Ravens speaking in human voices. Sleep now. Rest now. Let go now. Your last aware thought dissolves before it forms. Something about tomorrow, or yesterday, or the eternal now that exists in this cabin at the edge of the world. But thinking requires effort you no longer possess. Easier to sink, to float, to become. The island holds you now. Haida Gwaii, dreaming its ancient dreams through you. The waves continue their counting. 7. Pause. 7. Pause. But you've stopped counting. Stopped noticing. Stopped being separate from the rhythm. Somewhere, a cedar cabin holds a sleeping form. Somewhere, waves touch shore and retreat. Somewhere, stars wheel overhead in patterns older than names. But you're no longer somewhere. You're everywhere. Nowhere. Deeply, perfectly, completely at rest. The night continues its ancient business, and you dissolve into dream. Wind moves through cedar boughs with sounds like whispered stories. Stories without words. Stories told in the language of branch and needle. The trees are breathing, slow, patient breaths that take decades to complete. And you're breathing with them, part of them. Roots deep in earth, crown touching stars. The cabin holds its warmth like a cupped hand holds water, carefully, gently. The fire burns low but steady, orange coals pulsing like a sleeping heart. The walls remember other sleepers, other dreams, adding your rest to their collection of peaceful nights. Outside, the tide is turning, or has turned. or will turn. Time means nothing to water. The waves continue their ancient conversation with the shore, speaking of depths, of distances, of the space between one breath and the next. An animal moves through the forest, deer perhaps, or something older, something that was here before names. Its footsteps are soft as falling needles, present then gone, like thoughts at the edge of sleep. The stars wheel overhead in their slow dance. Constellations the Haida know by different names, different stories, but the same eternal lights. Watching over this edge of the world where ocean meets forest, where waking meets sleeping, where you rest now, in the deep peace of islands that have been dreaming since the world was young. Sleep holds you completely now. No more thoughts, no more awareness, just the deep, restful darkness that heals, that restores, that carries you through the night on waves of ancient rhythm. The island dreams through you, and you through it, until there's no difference, no boundary, only rest, only peace, only sleep.